Hello, my little maggots. Welcome back to Aetheral Space 17.47 Seafoam.
Wow, that is a new one. Little maggots.
Hello, my little
We're
maggots.
back.
Hello, kiss. No.
Yeah. We're late to the recording, but it's my fault. I had a thing I was doing yesterday, but now we're here, and we're gonna get this taken care of and put
Well,
up for you as soon as possible.
yeah. Well, you weren't like playing video games or anything, so I can forgive it.
I was playing video games today, but yesterday, why we couldn't have it up in time for today was I had a thing I was doing.
Yeah.
But without further ado, day 3. Do you have a dream, a toy Muzazi? Brother Worm asked. Muzazi glanced over at him. Given the situation, it didn't seem like the more pressing question. After the final church had made their announcement of crusade upon Nermut, the group had hidden themselves away in their temporary base. But now, in the day's last dwindling minutes, Muzazi and Worm had stepped out to scout the situation. Before them was a crimson wall, the outermost layer of Zepan's protective barrier. From Dragana's intrusion in Zepan's system, she'd been able to confirm there were 2 more. One between them and the city ring and Zepan itself, and one between Zepan and the Fortress Oberon. It would be extremely difficult for anything to move between those barriers without Zephyr Pandershi's allowance. In short, then, they were trapped. Now that the pressure of the crusade was upon them, Zephyr Pandershi's next move would no doubt be to reclaim permutation as quickly as possible. Zepan's forces would come for them with fury, and soon. This stray moment, standing before the Crimson Barrier, suddenly seemed very precious indeed. A dream? Muzazi wondered vaguely. I don't know. I've had dreams. I wanted to be supreme, you know. Worm glanced at him. Why? What a simple question. What a difficult-to-answer question. I wanted to change the world, Muzazi said, though it felt insufficient. Standing on top of it felt like the surest way. On top? Worm furrowed his brow. I think we have different ideas of what the Supreme is. It's strange to hear you say that, Muzazi smirked ruefully. With that voice, I mean. You are aware that the original version of yourself is the Supreme, aren't you? Of course, Worm crossed his arms. I couldn't say what's going on inside his head, but I imagine he's probably got the wrong idea too. About the Supreme, I mean. And what's the right idea then? Muzazi raised an eyebrow. The Supreme isn't at the top of the world, Worm said simply. They're at the bottom. They're the statue that everything else rests upon. They're the foundation of this world. That's why they can't change a thing. Muzazi frowned. If they're holding everything up, then surely all they need to do is shrug? A statue can't shrug, Worm shook his head. All it can do is stand there, looking glorious until it's replaced. Personally, I think you're very lucky, Muzazi. You managed to avoid becoming supreme. Because of that, you're still able to dream. The moment someone becomes supreme, they're doomed to never change a thing. Muzazi chuckled without a trace of levity. Was that meant to make me feel better? I hope not. It was kind of a downer. The solemnity had disappeared completely from Worm's voice, returning them to their casual chat. I'm still interested, though. What's your dream? Why did you come here? Beyond the red wall, obscured by its defense, vast and indistinct shapes could be seen moving. The final church was wasting no time in arraying their war machines against Zepan. It was like they were looking into a vast ocean of blood, watching the gargantuans within it, waiting for it all to crash down upon them and Zepan. Muzazi peered into that grim future, hoping to find something to latch on to there. Finally, he answered Worm's question. I came here to find Aklama, he said. That's the previous Supreme's kid, right? Muzazi nodded. I betrayed her in the past. I betrayed her more than once. Because of that, I've driven her to this darkest of places. It's my duty to grab her by the hand and pull her back out. That doesn't sound like a dream, Worm narrowed his eyes. It sounds like an obligation. Perhaps. But it's the closest thing a kinder world than this. Muzazi stopped talking. His own words, the words of Mariloko, had suddenly come back to him. With all the chaos that had followed, and all the chaos that had preceded it, he hadn't had much time to consider his battle below the seat of man. Slowly, Worm looked knowingly away from Muzazi, back towards the barrier. I've been thinking about it, he said quietly. what the final church is doing here? The crusade? No, Worm said. I understand the rationale. It's the way they're doing it that threw me for a loop. Gathering in armies and machines all around like this, it's not exactly efficient. Well, Musashi ventured, these shields are quite sturdy. It's not like they can just walk in. There's nothing invincible in this world, Worm replied. If they wanted to, I have no doubt that the church could break the city like an egg from orbit. It might take a while, sure, but it's still the most efficient way to do things. Yet they've decided not to do that. I know why. Do you? Slowly, Musashi shook his head. Tell me. Greed, Worm sighed. Whatever else Zephyr Pandershi might be, he is a genius. Zepan is the place where he makes his wonders. Zepan is the place where he keeps them. Just destroying this place would mean destroying all of that precious technology, all of that invaluable research. He shrugged. They want it for themselves, basically. It would make them stronger if they could claim it, Musashi mused. You disapprove? I'd have thought you'd be all for it. You're part of the final church, after all. That's the supremacy talking, Worm muttered, running a hand through his hair. Anyway, my point is, like it or not, greed is what drives people a lot of the time. Greed has brought the final church all the way out here, to the end of the world. Greed is what's driving us variants, all of us wanting to claim existence for ourselves. Heck, I'd say greed is probably what's driving Pandershi, too. Maybe greed isn't the right word, maybe want, but it's always there. The desire to grasp for more than you can fit in your hands. A dream's too big for anyone to seize hold of. A kinder world than this, Brother Worm asked again. Do you have a dream, Atoy Musashi? Musashi clenched his fists as he looked into the red. I want, he whispered. I want to save a climber. I want to repair what I broke between us. I want a peaceful end to the permutation ritual. I want to stop Pandershi's plans. I want to bring down Darkstar. I want to defeat Dragon Hadrian. I want to fix the supremacy. I want to end the constant wars. I want... He swallowed. I want a kinder world than this. Worm suppressed a smile. My, he said lightly. How greedy of you. Aetheral Space, 17.47. Seafoam, Day 4. Maxim let out a low gurgle of contentment as he watched the storm clear. Now at last he could see it fully. The strength beyond strength, the ingenuity of an apex predator. Tyrannicide was everything he'd hoped for, the aetheral poison itself. He spread his arms wide, welcoming the agent of the world's end. Trash was fighting behind him. It didn't matter. They were nothing more than lumps of gunpowder, slaves to Aether, the variant, the wretch, and that cretin with his stolen sword. Their universal significance had already been meek, but over the last few minutes it had withered away to nothing. The Angel of Death had appeared, dark wings ready to wipe the slate clean, and so nothing else mattered anymore. Pandershi's plan to crawl across the galaxy was truly insanity, but it was an insanity Maxim would indulge for the sake of his own. Nobody abused Panacea more than the feral aetheral addicts. When he had joined his fetid flesh with them all, Pandershi would become the finest of targets. Their Freischütz alone wouldn't suffice to fell such a beast, but if he combined it with the now perfected curse hand... For the first time in decades, true laughter rose from Maxim's throat as he spread his arms wider and wider and wider. Oh, joy! What a magnificent display! Atoy Musashi, the man who had very nearly become supreme, had been helpless before her. Granted, his abilities were no doubt dulled by guilt, but even so, all of his attacks had been as nothing before Tyrannicide. The light of the mind was but a flickering bulb before his final creation. Aether! Maxim screamed into the night, crimson sparks of hatred broiling around him. Hear me! Did you see? Did you witness? Your end is at hand! Nothing answered him, of course. Nothing answered him save the empty wind, and behind him the sounds of raging combat. Of course there was no answer. He slowly lowered his arms. How indiscreet of him. How long it had been since he had felt enough excitement to spark such mania. He certainly hoped nobody had been watching.
Sorry, I got a little too hyped.
The cybernetics within Aklima's body were synchronized with his own, so giving her a command was as easy as thinking it. Withdraw! In the distance, he saw Tyrannicide take off like a missile, leaving a trail of burning smoke in the air behind her. He had no concerns about her obedience. If she was in her right mind, he was sure she'd have luxuriated in the opportunity to mutilate a Toy Musazi's corpse, but he'd taken such unwise impulses into account. She lacked the lucidity for such things. Hers was a long, hateful dream. To her, that corpse had ceased to be a Toy Musazi the moment it had dropped. To her, anyone in the world could now be a Toy Musazi. Maxim placed his trembling hands in the pockets of his trench coat as he turned back towards the chaos of the ongoing clash. That creature? Rayanj Patel, was it? It seemed he was resisting the influence of Nine's agents with some resolution behind him. That, or his madness, just wasn't the kind that showed itself cleanly. Whatever the case, he and his bombs were keeping Tarada at bay without much difficulty. No matter. Maxim had only dispatched Tarada so he wouldn't be distracted anyway. He put a finger to his ear as a Sealy report came over the communicator. Presence of permutation confirmed in Sector G8, the voice of a coordinator came through. The Hadrian variant known as Nararion seems to be in possession of it. He's fighting with an unknown party, some kind of beast. All forces, converge! Converge! The majority of the Sealy Rangers were merely competent, acquiring notable strength only by combining their abilities. They wouldn't work as much more than distractions against enemies of this level. They'd need backup from an unsealy ASAP. And besides, without permutation, nobody's dream was coming true. Tarada, Maxim growled. We're leaving. The boy wasted no time. He had a plethora of diseases, among them loyalty. With a final, forceful move, he brought his boxed sword down upon the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust that smothered everything for meters around. It was clumsy, but enough. By the time the cloud was gone, Rayanj Patel and Dragana Hadrian stood alone. Atoy Musazi did not open his eyes. How could he? He had no eyes to open. He had lost in his heart. He knew that he had lost in every way that mattered. As a warrior and as a human, one last failure to punctuate a life. Tears did not come to his eyes, for he had no eyes, and besides he had lost the ability to shed them. The quickening of his heartbeat was the only despair still permitted for Atoy Musazi. And yet, a voice. A toy? Atoy Musazi opened the eyes he did not have. There he stood, in a white voice that stretched off into forever.
Void.
It was bright, absurdly bright. What?
You said white voice is white void, sorry.
Oh, into a white void that stretched off into forever. It was bright, absurdly bright, and yet it didn't feel overbearing at all. If Atoy Musazi had had eyes, he was certain they wouldn't be hurt by this light at all. I think you can just do one head. It wasn't incandescence, but radiance. He chuckled bitterly. Atoy? Said the voice again. Musazi turned to look, and the second he saw who had been speaking, he went to ignite a radiant. It did not answer his call. The time for fighting had long since passed, and this wasn't the kind of enemy who could fall to a blade anyway. Balte Kojiro smirked back at him, conical hat hanging low over his eyes. He looked just as he had when they'd fought at the Child Garden years ago. Not just his dress, but his aspect. This was him, plucked from the moment between sword swings. A phantom of my mind, Musazi whispered. I'm hallucinating before the end. Of course, Balte replied, a note of amusement in his voice. Did you think you were important enough to receive some kind of magical vision? How arrogant. Musazi narrowed his eyes. What do you want, Kojiro? He didn't know how to describe the feeling brewing in his chest. This was his murderer. This was his creator. Could Balte even be called Musazi's father? He banished the dreadful thought with much effort. When he spoke, the image of Balte Kojiro didn't answer the question. Instead, resting a hand on the hilt of Leviathan, he looked off into the white. What a sad life you had, Atoy Musazi. To defeat me, to claim your own independent existence, and end up like that anyway. I'm tempted to say you botched it. You're one to talk, Musazi muttered, clenching his fists. I certainly am, and I will continue to speak, just like this, until the moment your heart stops, Balte replied casually. That's a second and an eternity away. What a wondrous thing our human brain is. It can even see the future, you know? Musazi said nothing, and the easy smile dropped from Balte's face. But yes, the Spectre said more seriously, you botched it. You obtained a life, you obtained the ability to become anything, and yet you were too afraid to become anything. Nonsense. Is it now? Tell me, Atoy Muzazi, are you an honorable man? Or are you a man willing to betray your ideals for the greater good? Are you loyal or duplicitous? Are you a warrior or a peacemaker? Are you a mentor or a king? Are you an actor or a dreamer? You've dabbled in all of these things, sticking your toes in the water, and yet afraid to commit. Instead of becoming anything, you remained nothing. You caused everyone much more pain that way, including yourself. It really is sad. For the first time in a long time, Muzazi reached for the hilt of a sword he hadn't held in years, to no avail. That poisonous comfort was absent, though perhaps it was a blessing he hadn't been able to fall back into such a pathetic self at the end. You know, Balte continued, the girl, Aklyma, it would have been better for her if you had betrayed her cleanly, like ripping off a band-aid. But you dived back and forth, betrayer and protector, adversary and savior. You hoped to soften the blow, I'm sure, but it seems more like you half-assed it to me. You knew what you had to do, and yet you couldn't bring yourself to do it. Anger flared sharply in Muzazi's chest, and he took a heavy step towards the ghost. You think I could do that? The girl I swore to protect. You think I could just do that to her? Balte was unmoved. Then don't betray her in the first place. Enough! Muzazi swept a hand through the air, scattering Balte's form like mist. His imaginary breathing was heavy, the weight in his body becoming more severe by the second. If these were his last moments, he would not spend them being admonished by a hallucination that had no place judging him. If this was the end, then he would accept his end with grace. He wouldn't stand here being lectured by his own... A hand landed on his shoulder. Atoy Muzazi's eyes bulged out of his sockets, and his posture tensed into a perfect statue. There was a presence behind him, an impossible presence, a presence he knew wasn't real, couldn't be real, and yet every part of him was reacting like it was. You reached it, Cadman chuckled. His voice was nonchalant, as casual as could be, and yet behind every word lingered the deep resonance of power. This was a voice that could crush mountains. Muzazi's mouth felt dry. Reached what? Come on now, Cadman said. What else would I want to talk to you about, little guy? The pinnacle of strength. That sure was something, huh? You mean the fight against your... Muzazi swallowed, staying as still as possible. Against Aklyma. There was no point in saying your daughter. Not once in his life had Cadman taken an interest in that fact. Hallucination or not, that fact would never change. Yeah, Cadman said, voice low. His other hand landed on Muzazi's other shoulder, and absurdly he began to rub them, giving Muzazi an unwelcome and frankly terrifying massage. Did you like it? Cadman asked. That's what it looks like at the top, little guy. Once you've gathered all the strength you can. That's battle. It was nothing, right? Just a mess of light and noise and blood. Once you reach the top, you can't even feel anything anymore. It's great. Muzazi took a deep breath. That's not what I gathered strength for. Cadman ignored him. His hands continued to move, feeling as though the slightest misjudgment of effort would crush Muzazi's bones. Even though Muzazi knew this was nothing but his imagination, even though he knew Cadman was long dead, the sheer pressure of the Supreme's image was such that he didn't dare to escape. You took some hits back there, too, didn't you, boy? Cadman continued. I bet you didn't feel them. I bet you didn't feel anything. Don't be embarrassed, it was the same with me. Once you've tasted all the battlefield has to offer, none of it means anything anymore. Your limbs ripped off, get new limbs. Your eyes torn out, get new eyes. As long as you're breathing, you think you'll just bounce back. And you're right. That's what it means to stand at the top of the world. Muzazi finally forced himself to turn his head just a tiny bit, such that he could see the hulking silhouette at the very edge of his periphery. That's obscene, he said sharply. Hey, it's your life, pal. It's what you signed up for when you cut off my head. You don't like it? Maybe live a different one. Yeah? That is not my life, Muzazi replied, his voice low. That is not what I chose for myself, and I am done speaking with you. It took resolve beyond that required even for a battle, but Atoy Muzazi finally willed himself to break free of Cadman's grip. It was as easy as blinking. All he had to do was step forward, and Cadman's presence immediately returned to nothing. In the void of a life's end, Muzazi let out a shaking breath. What life did you choose, then? Mariloko asked. Tell me. Muzazi turned around. Another ghost of the past had joined him at the terminus. Mariloko sat on the ground, hands on his knees, looking up at him with his usual blank expression. The irritation buried deep within his eyes hadn't changed either. "What?" Musashi asked. "What life did you choose?" Mariloko repeated. "What life are you living?" Brother Worm's words bubbled to the top of Musashi's mind. "Do you have a dream, Atoy Musashi?" It was the same question, really, wasn't it? "I'm living to change the world," Musashi whispered. "A kinder world than this, just as you asked me." "Huh." Mariloko stared steadily. "How come you're here, then?" Musashi let out a long sigh. "I failed to do as you asked. I failed to fulfill everyone's hopes. A climber overpowered me. I lost." "No." Mariloko shook his head. "Why did you come to Nermut?" "Pandurshi's plan is insanity," Musashi said sharply. "Thine and Darkstar lurk here as well. Forces conspire to plunge the galaxy into chaos from right here. If I didn't come here, do you really think a kinder world would be possible?" "Dunno," Mariloko shrugged. "But that's not why you came here. You came here because of the girl. Acclima." Popcorn.
Yeah. The jumbled memories of his last moments on Serendipity trickle from Musashi's mind. His hand around Nine's throat, his body covered in wounds. That obsession, he had to save her, he had to save her, he had to save her. I had to. Why? Musashi took a step forward, planting his foot right into the midst of Mariloko's long shadow. His voice was raised, his passion echoing off of invisible walls. "Because it was my fault. Whatever darkness grew inside her, I put it there. Whatever bitterness drove her was aimed at me. I betrayed that girl, and betrayed her again. You would have me abandon her again?" "Yeah," said Mariloko. Was that
Sigma?
Sorry?
Sigma.
He's always been a Sigma male. Whenever he ate the sandwich on the plate.
Yeah, that's true.
Giga chat. His shoulders trembled as he clenched his fists at his sides. "I can't," he whispered bitterly. "I can't. It's my responsibility. I have to fix it. But you can't fix it." As he looked up. "You couldn't fix it the first time," Mariloko said calmly. "And you couldn't fix it the second time, and you couldn't fix it the third time. Maybe it's not the sort of thing that can be fixed. Maybe it's not the sort of thing that you can fix. But I can't just give up." Mariloko sniffed, slapping his hands against his thighs. "Whatever. Sounds to me like you're giving up right now. Instead of doing what you want to do, you're falling back on what you think you need to do. And you'll keep falling. Forever." Musashi had no argument to offer. Even if he did, there would have been no point in making it. All he was doing was speaking to himself anyway. He looked down into the void, and when he looked back up, a dark helmet was inches from his face. "Do better next time," the Abyssal Knight hissed. Musashi recoiled, nearly falling backwards. By the time he got his stumbling out of control, the knight had vanished. Mariloko too was gone. All that remained was Musashi and the emptiness. "Next time?" Musashi muttered incredulously. "What next time? There is no next time. That's the entire point of this. I failed. I lost. A tiny blue fish drifted past his vision. Right now, Atoy Musashi was only distantly aware of his body, a mass of red-hot pain. For the first time since he had fallen, though, he could feel that terrible heat beginning to abate. Instead, a chill was making its way down the stations of his spine. "No," Musashi whispered. He snapped his head up towards the sky. "No!" Musashi screamed. Popcorn.
From the moment Brother Worm had seen what had become of Atoy Musashi, he had known what he needed to do. Perhaps he'd known since the first time he'd laid eyes upon the man. No, probably not. That was nothing but a sentimental impulse. Aquarius Covenant! He sat on a nearby rock, holding his hand up, watching calmly as tiny scraps of his skin peeled away and became tiny, shining fish. The disciples of Aquarius Covenant swam through the air as a constant streaming school, winding through the sky and flowing down into the corpse at the pit's core. It weakly twitched. Corpse. Worm smirked ruefully, even as his lips began to flake off. Even that word hardly seemed to describe what had become of Atoy Musashi. Whatever that thing he'd battled with was, it had ravaged him beyond all recognition. To be frank, it was a miracle the wretched cadaver had even survived long enough for Worm to arrive and begin treatment. As a brother of the final church, Worm could hardly let such a miracle go to waste, could he? "I've been thinking," Worm said softly, "about the talk we had last night. A kinder world than this? Yeah, I like the sound of that, he chuckled. It's funny. Up until you said that, up until I saw the look in your eyes, I never really thought something like that was possible. That's terrible, right? I'm a priest, and I thought that. But you could do it. I'm sure you can do it. He held up his hand, watching as his fingers flowed away as tiny flocks of seahorses. I want to see it, he sighed. That's the annoying part. I want to see it happen. But this is the only way to make it happen. He sighed, scratching his silver hair. Damn it, you got me dreaming. You're gonna have to take responsibility for that, you jerk. His fingers went, his hands, his arms, and his worm raised his sparkling stumps into the air, gazing in wonder at the streams of light. The corpse on the ground began to twitch. Once, twice, thrice. Get up, Worm whispered. Get up. Move, Atoy Muzazi, say something. There was no response. Of course there wasn't. By the time Muzazi was able to speak again, he wouldn't be able to answer Worm. Or at least Worm wouldn't be able to hear the answer. I don't want to die. The thought came suddenly, but in the same moment it was accompanied by another. I don't want you to die. Worm calmly reached out and plucked free the future that seemed the least intolerable. It's funny, he murmured, looking up at the crimson sky. Right now, I feel like I don't mind giving you my everything. Credits roll. He sighed once more, and his breath became the wind. No! Muzazi screamed at the absent heavens. No! Atoy? Worm! Muzazi roared as schools of tiny fish rushed past him. Don't you dare, you bastard! Atoy? Not again! Muzazi begged the world. Nobody else, please! Nobody else can give their life for me! Atoy? Said Marie Hazard. Slowly, Atoy Muzazi turned his head. It was shameful, but in that moment all of his rage, all of his righteous indignation faded away. There she was, standing before him in the white void. Golden hair, crimson eyes, the sad smile from that moment. For her, not even a second had passed. It was a wonder she even recognized him as he was now. He had dreamed of this before, and this was still nothing but a dream, but it was a dream that was just a tad more solid. Muzazi took a step forward. Muzazi took another step forward. The entirety of his mind was consumed by that one simple action. There was no room for anything else. His hands found hers, her forehead pressed against his. In the silent cold they stood, almost like they had on Nocturnus so long ago now. There was no snow, but it was a blizzard all the same. When he blinked, his eyes were wet. He squeezed them shut instead. Long, he wondered vaguely. How long has it been since I wept from the bottom of my heart? Atoy, Marie said. Atoy, you need to go. He could feel it at the back of his soul. The world was pulling at him, bringing it back to itself, to himself. It was just as the Abyssal Knight had said. He was being given yet another chance. Someone else was taking the backlash of his failure. A life for a life. Again? I did my best, he whispered, voice heavy. Isn't that enough? You haven't won yet, she replied. You told me about your dream, right? I wanted to become supreme. That can't happen anymore. I don't even want it to happen anymore. It's nothing. But you got a new dream? It wasn't a question, but Muzazi felt the need to answer it all the same. His lips trembled. His first attempt at a reply became a hoarse choke. The second was silenced by a finger to his lips. Marie smirked mischievously, looking him right in the eye. Don't tell me about it, she winked. Show me, okay? She planted her hands against his chest. Keep going, Atoy Muzazi, and pushed. Atoy Muzazi opened his eyes. It was the easiest thing in the world. New eyes, fresh eyes, rested in his sockets. As he rose to a sitting position, half submerged in his own shed blood, he understood that it wasn't just his eyes. New skin, new muscle, new bone. Everything that had ever suffered the tiniest modicum of damage had been completely restored. He brought a pale hand to his face, feeling around, and felt not a single scar. Even that old wound had been completely wiped away. With the surrender of the user's very life, Aquarius Covenant had transcended its limits, bestowing salvation far beyond what it normally would have been capable of. In this moment, in this place, Atoy Muzazi had truly been reborn. As he rose to his feet, his legs trembled. They had only just come into existence, after all. Muzazi's clear gaze settled on a discarded pile of clothes, right on the edge of the pool of blood. Loose, dusty garments, and an eye patch bearing the insignia of a dolphin. His lips spread into a soft, fond smile. You damn fool. Boom! At the sudden noise, loud enough to overpower everything else, Musazi's head snapped up towards the sky. Up there he could see it, a new, vast silhouette visible through the rippling red barrier. A sphere had appeared, looking down upon the fleets in the city in the war. The Thinker's Comet had come. Wait, what's the Thinker's Comet?
That was the third light point ship from the Supremacy. It was the one that the lab was on, and it's one the UAP took. So it's one Bruno and everyone was coming here on.
Toy Musazi breathed his first breath and took his first steps. The promise he had made to himself, to Marie, to Worm, still resounded in his mind. A kinder world than this. There was work to be done. Did he at least get a shadow crystal about it? What's this lying in the pile of clothes? All right. Good chapter.
Thank you.
Do we have some Aether questions?
We do.
Let's see. All right. Lan asks, had any of the Helis Audrey proxies been through permutation before in their own timelines?
Probably the first time she used it, there might have been like one. The second time, probably more. One, I would say it becomes more likely for them to do it one after a point where you already used it once if you do it a second time.
If a proxy came in wielding a generated permutation, would it work? Could you do a ritual within a ritual?
I would say it probably wouldn't allow that, just because at that point, I would say that's probably hard coded in. Don't make more of yourself.
A second Dark Fountain.
Someone just made it. Helis Audrey puts a hand on your shoulder and is like, you are welcome here anytime.
If a proxy came... oh, wait, that was answered. Agent Tarask asks, if the Hadrian variant had one wish each, standard genie rules apply, what would it be and why?
Oh, God. My cat record would be Helper Bruno 10,000 years.
Oh. Only 10,000.
Yeah. And then you can get him again.
So shallow.
After it.
That's the biggest number.
Virgo would be promotion to for CEO of Halcyon.
That's beautiful.
The captain would be Elysian Field didn't happen.
Yeah. Classic.
Dragana's got a pretty good life, to be honest. I don't, what would she wish for?
$1 billion.
Maybe, yeah. Like, emotionally, she's pretty okay.
Good for her.
It's strange. Let's not examine that right now. But then,
what about Gangster Dragon?
Oh, he might also wish for $1 billion. But I think more likely would be, I want to be the godfather of all crime in the galaxy. Maybe I want to be in charge.
Yeah.
Or he'd maybe wish for like, I wish no one can attack me or oppose me, and I can do whatever I want.
What would the Fleurs be?
The Fleur, probably Dragon Hadrian never existed and can never exist in any fashion.
Wow. What about that one who was just a normal guy?
It might also be $1 billion for him because he's a working class dragon.
And then what about Dragon?
The dragon?
Yeah.
I want what he would say, I want the Galactic Supreme Boss Rush.
Wow. A 5-course meal just for
Yeah.
me. My life never had dessert.
It would be a swing
Rockstar
moment,
asks,
without a doubt. Nerarion would be like, I want everyone to have a guardian entity smile.
Assuming that Nine had actually died on the Serendipity, would McCoy have actually inherited as well?
Maybe. She might have. It depends, like, on how easy it would be her for her to continue it. If it required, like, laying low for like a century, she probably wouldn't have done it.
Alright, I think with that, we're ready to cut it off. But hey, thank you all for watching, and maybe we'll even see you next time.
Maybe.
Bye.
Bye.